to a very special, very unique, very honest episode of Super Danger Studios. We have Clay Bale, PRS artist, a great friend, and a lover of the color pink. Clay,
Indeed.
Thanks for coming. Clay and I used to be in a band in Chicago. Our bass player said, "Do you want to be in our band?" And Clay, for some reason, said yes.
Yeah, you just like, it was like you play guitar? We need a guitar player. And I was just like, yes, I needed a band.
You had a similar trajectory as me, where you started in an orchestra, right? And like a concert band. Like
sort of.
Saxophone, right?
No, I started playing when I was 5. My dad put on a Willie Dixon record and a guitar solo happened, and he said that I like violently threw my blocks at the floor and just like was like, what is this? Like, I was like upset that I'd never heard it before. And he was like, that's an electric guitar. And just right at that moment, I just became obsessed. 8 years of classical.
Classical guitar?
Yeah, that was the deal. They made a deal with a 5-year-old saying, if you do this for 8 years, then for your 13th birthday, we'll get you an electric guitar. And I did it. It's like the longest commitment I've ever had in my life.
Yeah. You're a session guitarist. You produce artists.
Yeah, that's been a newer thing. But I've been
perform live as well, obviously. I played that one gig with you. That was fun. I never asked anyone, but I bet you if I asked them, your note selection, your note choice while you write and play, I think is very unique.
I've stolen a lot of things from like Frank Zappa.
Sure.
You know, and some kind of obscure players. Sean Tubbs is a local guy.
Yeah.
Carrie Underwood's guitar player for I think like 8 years. That dude is like everything you just described is 100% how I feel about him. Like he consistently blows me away with like how original his playing is. You know, I think a lot of times we'll get caught up in like, you know, can this person sweep pick or like these techniques that seem like a checklist. At the end of the day, it's just like, can somebody sound like themselves? I think that is the hardest challenge with something that so many people have done. He just goes outside of the box and he swears up and down that like he doesn't do it based on theory.
I don't know theory. And I'm
like, I'm just like,
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I do. And I'm having a hard time explaining what some of those things are. So maybe there's some brilliance to it.
What's funny is too is like, he'll explain the lick and I'm like, for some reason I understand it less. Yeah. Like even though I can play, I'm playing what you're playing, and now I'm like even more confused.
That dude's a wizard. He also had one of the best Jeff Beck tributes in terms of people like trying to sound like him. Nobody really can.
Yeah, with that link to that in description.
Yeah, he did a great job on that tribute. I think one of the things that Nashville's taught me especially is restraint, which I think it's hard for guitar players. You know, like. Yeah. We all grew up with like, you know, guitar magazines with some cool looking dude on the cover, you know, and like solos and all the like classic rock that all of us love, you know, because it's like guitar music. And a lot of music today is not exactly like guitar music. And I think that it takes a lot of restraint to serve it with an instrument that oftentimes wants to take up the space itself. And it's really easy as a guitar player to get like carried away. Yeah. But yeah, restraint has been a really, really important thing. You know, playing to the changes. You know, say it's like a Taylor Swift style song. Right. You know, it's pretty. It's, you know, driving, catchy. Like you can't mistake speed for intensity if you're given a lead over something like that. I think that there's a way to rip a solo without thinking that means that you need to like build it up to a frenzy. Yeah. Like you can build up your own energy and like intention.
So building tension, I think, is like a really misunderstood thing. Like obviously building tension through increased speed, which is really just percussion. Like building percussion intensity, I think is like not the cheap way to do it, but it's like you run out of steam quickly.
You know, a beginner, like it is part of the fundamental, like there is something to be said about like faster and higher, you know, like you can do that for a lead.
Let's go over like a very common chorus, like a chorus hook chorus in like a pop country song or a pop song right now. think one of the interesting things that you did there is like you ended on the 5 to end one of your phrases, and I think that's something that I wish I did more of.
I think it's like it's the second strongest note that you've got, you know.
But it builds so much tension because it's like there's no way he's done. Yeah, like that's like such a cool. Like the 5 up there.
You can keep hitting it, and it is as effective every time. I think. I don't think it becomes less effective as time goes on.
Like does it work if you're at like an octave up, like on a different string? Because I think also like having the meatiness.
Yeah, like it helps when you're almost beneath the rhythm. Like it gives like, you know, that one down like.
You know what it reminds me of? It's like almost like a Fleetwood Mac kind of thing. For some reason, it always like makes me feel like 70s pop. Okay, so that's one approach is like not ending on the tonic, ending on the 5. Now,
particularly not ending on the tonic of the key.
Right.
I think that is something that is always a safe place to return to. It's an excellent home base to have. Mm-hmm. But generally, it has so much resolution. That's it. That's the note that you've been expecting to be the last one the whole time that brings us back and like gets rid of all the tension.
So you're not leaving them wanting more. I mean, it's like comes back to showmanship. It's like leave the listener wanting to hear what's coming next. But let's play with a little bit outside because you do a lot of crazy outside stuff too. So let's do that same progression, but let's add just one level of complexity. It's funny because like in pop, your leeway in like building tension, you don't get as much leeway as you would in even rock.
One of the number one things that I will do is probably quote the main melody of a song. If it's in a pop, particularly pop ballad, a lot of the time it's better to kind of reduce yourself to like chords and really think about playing it like a little bit more like a piano player. I've always loved listening to like solo piano. Solo guitar. Like, I just think that it's almost like the final frontier of the instrument is like to take it out of the context of a band and to really expand and do whatever is most musical with it. You know, be that complexity or simplicity. Double stops will serve you super well, you know. I like to use a lot of what I call triple stops.
Okay.
It's just kind of, you know, like just full triads at that point.
So that's borrowing a lot from like neo soul, and that's what it reminds me of, like late 90s neo soul, Philly sound kind of stuff. So what we're saying is kind of borrowing from other genres and like pulling it into like less modal and more just like how can I serve the song with this technique. I've always loved the way you enter a solo, which I think is really important. It's like what's that lick that brings you into it, and I'm a big fan of starting before your solo starts, like before like the downbeat of like solo section, giving a lead up, even if it steps on the last vocal lines, I think is really important to get people, one, for the mixer to be like, oh, solo's coming, but two, I think to set the table. And you can afford to be kind of flashy on that first solo and then come back down. Like it's almost like, hey, I'm soloing, clap, get everyone's attention, bring it back, and then you can build that tension up again.
You know, it's a great example of that, a very iconic guitar solo, Don't Stop Believin'. It has a great little run up, you know, and it's a very subdued melodic solo. Just running up a scale, but it's a really nice little entry into it. The worst note that I ever played. Okay. That I'm hoping doesn't get dethroned at any point moving forward. We were performing At Last, key of F. The singer decided to give me a solo, which I in my mind was like, you know,
you
like give it to a sax player or something. Like it's just not a guitar solo song. I just very confidently was like, you know what would BB do? You know, like BB King could play a solo to it last. Right. So I just need to stay in his...
Let's reenact it. Instead, don't tell me, show me.
Yeah.
No way!
Just totally copped a BB King lick. Landed on F sharp. And I played it with all the confidence in the world. I was like, you just gotta get that BB tone and wiggle to it. Literally in my brain, I'm just like, Miles Davis, it's not the wrong note. How do you recover from it? And I'm just like, I didn't have a trim. You know, I would have been like, I would have pulled it off. My index finger on this note, and I'm like, like how far do I need to go before I have a note that doesn't just humiliate me? The whole band, like, I just looked at everybody. I literally said sorry. I apologize. And went back in and I played a solo. That was fun.
But let's talk about real intros here. So, like, how would you come in to get everyone's attention on this?
Honestly, easiest trick in the book is just straight up a pentatonic scale.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you look at a lot of these things, you know, what is your most comfortable space to throw out something really quickly? You know, like a lot of times those licks that you've been living with forever are the pentatonic scale. It is a guitar player's best friend. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't need more than it, honestly. I do encourage people to look beyond it, but ultimately, I think that there's a ton of examples, like unbelievable amount of examples of incredibly successful careers using just the pentatonic scale, and guitar and bass. And just all around, you know. Yeah. Larry Graham was using, you know, some stuff that wasn't entirely pentatonic, but he's like one of the greatest and most influential funk bass players of all time. A lot of that stuff was pentatonic. A lot of James Brown's bass lines were pretty pentatonic. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be your most inspired lick. It's a way of just being like, here comes the guitar. You play something that feels familiar, that tells people what to expect, you know? And you just get up to the note you're trying to hit.
If you're not going to wow them with your note choice, which is totally fine, you need to wow them with your rhythm and your tone.
I prefer playing slower most of the time. And I think that that's something that came on. I mean, you know, when we knew each other, it was like, how fast can we get?
Yeah.
There's just little things, like, if had that note been any shorter, like, there's a whole personality that you get to know a little bit, and that's something that a player like Jack Roush, I mean, he is the most intentional player I think I've ever heard, and every note that he plays is gorgeous, and you get to appreciate how gorgeous it is because he lets you have the note for more than a 16th note, you know, just. Not every note needs to be wild.
Yeah.
I always kind of save the outside stuff a little bit. There's certain areas that you'll feel it come on, and you know, you might be like, oh, like this would be a good place to get pretty spicy. The 5 chord.
Yeah.
Always a great place to do a little bit more outside stuff. There's some weirder stuff going on there that you can play with.
Especially if it's going 5 to the back to the 4. Mm-hmm. Because then you
got that whole like tritone thing right in the middle, you know. All the things that you do in rhythm, you can do in lead. Given that you're doing something that's essentially kind of mixolydian, like you've got 7th chords the whole time, just telling you that that G is in the key. However, every time you play the E7, you've got a G sharp. So you're dealing with like more of a like, is it major, is it minor space? And frankly, you can get away with both. You know, I think that like on a 5 chord there, you know. You could literally exist in that space of indecision and do something really cool, you know, like.
Yeah.
That's what I'll show you that one. Right here. So it's you're essentially doing a G triad, which is something I love. You know, it's that kind of Michael Jackson, Nile Rodgers sort of shape and sound. But if you're going from the 1 to the 4. So, and then landing on the 4 here. So you play like, you know, D9. And as you slide that shape up, you come down on the bar to kind of like bring it back up.
So for those of you watching, you're outlining a G shape and you're outlining a D shape, and that's really all it is. And you're sliding into the G shape. You know. And this is the thing, like developing your guitar voice. That is how like you can hear where Clay is pulling from neo soul. We can hear where you're pulling from, like classic rock. We can hear where you're pulling from, like really like the metal and heavy stuff that you used to listen to and still listen to as well.
I still do.
And that's where, you know, all of us hope to end up one day. So
I think having an appetite for guitar beyond a genre is incredibly important.
Follow Clay on all his socials. It'll be in the description below. And if you're ever in Nashville, come on by. He plays everywhere all the time, at every venue, at any genre possible.